and welcome back to Sunday Reads with Renee. My name is Renee, and today I'm going to be talking to you about why I still love some classic works of literature. Reason I say some classic works is because while I am a fan of classic works, I understand that some are not relevant today or make no sense in today's context of 2025. Classic literature is more often than not defined as transcending time and culture, recognized for artistic merit and universal appeal, though this does not include every work. As such, I decided to do a few quick searches of the pros and cons of classic literature. There are plenty of articles, but these are the basics I found for the topic of this video. Reasons for perceived irrelevance: archaic language and style, where things have just changed over time; lack of a modern context; limited perspectives; Eurocentric bias. Reasons for enduring relevance: universal themes, foster empathy and critical thinking, artistic quality, and foundation for modern works. Pros of reading classic novels: historical and cultural context, where it provides a unique window into the past societies and culture; understanding the human experience; improved language and writing skills; enhanced empathy and imagination; preservation of cultural wisdom, in which they collectively remember and preserve the creativity and wisdom of past generations. Cons of reading classic novels: outdated and offensive content, difficult language and style, lack of immediate context, pressure and disappointment, analytical versus pure enjoyment. With that in mind, I will be giving my own take, and forewarned, I am going to be revealing plot points of some novels, so spoilers are ahead. In terms of the con, I can understand a lot of this, including limited perspectives, as some of the greatest works of classic literature are mostly just written by white men and to some degree white women, no people of color, no LGBTQ plus, or even to some extent the lower income class. In the case of Mark Twain's The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, James, otherwise known as Jim, is a character in the book who is a black enslaved man written by a white man with outdated offensive content and stereotypes, which is why I thought Percival Everett's book James was great, because it gave this character a voice from the perspective of the horrors of the enslaved, something Mark Twain did not do nor could have done in the 19th century. And while I love the works of Jane Austen, all her main characters are wealthy or somewhat wealthy women, with the exception of Fanny Price from Mansfield Park. Granted, these women face challenges, especially given that the Regency era limits a woman's rights to inherit, but majority of them are still relatively privileged, depending on which novel you read. When it comes to the outdated offensive content, a lot of that does exist. In the case of Agatha Christie's And Then There Were None, the original title was based off a nursery rhyme from Christie's lifetime that used the N-word and did change to Indian, and is now published with 10 Little Soldier Boys along with the title And Then There Were None. Huckleberry Finn often uses the N-word, and Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's Sherlock Holmes story, The Adventure of Three Gables, where Steve Dixie, a black man, is an offensive caricature. To be clear, I have not read a lot of classic works that have outdated offensive content in terms of Asians, Hispanics, and other people of color, but though I hope to be able to research this further by reading some more books and going into more of a deep dive in a later video. The language and lack of modern context is very understandable, because when you're reading a book that was written in, say, the 1800s, some of it's not going to be understood unless you are aware of the historical context and you understand their perspective from living in that time and place. Say, the Regency era, where you're looking at, say, Jane Austen's works with lack of women not being able to inherit rights. It makes a little bit sense in that time, but doesn't so much for 2025. And then there's also the language context. In the case of William Shakespeare's plays, there's a lot of that old Elizabethan language that is so hard to understand at times, though you can peel back the layers and see the themes. Still very hard to understand at times, which is why they did this publication work a long time ago called No Fear Shakespeare. Not sure if it's still being sold elsewhere, but that was a very good thing for me when I was reading some Shakespeare in school. So why do I like classic works despite the cons? Well, some of it is because of the pros and depending on which book I read. And among those pros are foundation for a modern work, understanding the human experience, and the universal themes. And the themes can be very crucial, especially when you're reading the book, or it's depending on the book that you read. In Jane Austen's Persuasion, I relate to being of a certain age and judged for not being married with children or wishing I could go back in time doing things over, but accepting that I can never be. Or Anne Shirley from Anne of Green Gables, where she's a peculiar young preteen with red hair and freckles like me. Or the strength and resilience of Celie in The Color Purple, who moves forward in life to something better after years of horrific mistreatment. This, in my opinion, can also reflect understanding the human experience, in which I can never relate to Celia's experience with racism as a Black woman, or DV or SA, yet I support her fight to overcome it and find happiness thanks to her friendship with Shug Avery. I can never relate to the longing for lost or mislove like Jay Gatsby from The Great Gatsby, but I can relate to what could have been. All these universal themes and understanding of the human experience can create that foundation for a modern work. Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice is in many ways the cornerstone of that enemies to lovers trope, with the dash of misunderstandings that inspired a handful of modern works such as Bridget Jones' Diary. Charlotte Bronte's Jane Eyre is considered the first known novel to focus on the self and the discovery of the individual character, which can be found in Ray Jane by Patricia Park, where the character is of mixed race and struggling with belonging. Or some authors take the mystery element to create something similar or more in depth, such as Rebecca Wide Sargasso Sea or The Wife Upstairs. Nella Larsen's Passing, about mixed race friends who can pass as white in the 1920s, but one chooses not to, was in some ways considered inspiration for Brit Bennett's The Vanishing Half, though I'm not too sure because I haven't really gotten any confirmation. Nonetheless, these two books have a similar type of plot, but The Vanishing Half is more in depth about sisters who can pass, and it goes across decades and how it affects their daughters. Again, this is why I like some classic works, because of how they can remain timeless and still relate to you, even captivating audiences and inspiring different types of works. Early this year, I read a book called Charcoal Joe, which was a very good book and has been hailed and critiqued as being very Agatha Christie in its dialogue, which makes sense because Agatha Christie's works, if you read any of them, have a lot of characters in her books that really move the plot along through dialogue, and that's what you see with Charcoal Joe. I still love my Agatha Christie, Jane Austen, To Kill a Mockingbird, and The Grapes of Wrath. George Orwell's 1984 and Animal Farm are still highly regarded, and I enjoy their themes on totalitarianism, corruption, revolution, and more that remain relevant. Some classics are timeless, relevant, and a great experience. Still love them despite their flaws, though there are some that should not be held to a high standard, like Rebecca of Sunnybrook Farm, Heart of Darkness, Call of the Wild, and of Mice and Men, though some of it is more my own opinions based on the content, plots, and simply just not enjoying them. But this is just what I think. Now tell me what you think. Do you think there are some classic works that are timeless and held to a high standard? Do you think there are some that shouldn't be held there? Is there a classic work that you like in particular or don't like? Do you think classic works are completely irrelevant and shouldn't exist at all? Please let me know in these discussions and comments because I love to hear from everyone and know what everyone's doing. I thank you so much for tuning in. Please be sure to like, share, comment, subscribe, and click the notification bell for more information and videos along the way. I thank you so much again for tuning in, and I'll be back again with more videos. Thank you so much and have a good day.